it or explain it or trying to justify it away as not being real, then go talk to this gentleman about running his gas station, go talk to Ray about running his shoe repair store, and go talk to Lisa about the empty cages in her
Just as we
restaurant.
asked the
And
board.
they're the same people.
Please speak to the board, Dave.
Okay.
Marcia.
DOT, the fact of the matter is that the thriving Playa del Rey that everyone says that they want together, okay, needs those businesses. That's what it's all about. It's having a thriving restaurant district to go to and enjoy and everything else. If they aren't there, we don't have a thriving lower Playa del Rey to enjoy. And what they need is angled parking for their customers to park in, not a bike lane. That's what they really need if you ask the businesses. DOT also confirmed for us there was no study done at all of removing lanes east of Nicholson on Culver. There was no study done at all of removing lanes anywhere on Jefferson. There was no study done at all for removal of any lanes on Pershing, period. They didn't study any of those things before they did it. They were told, as they told us at the last meeting and confirmed again, that they were to implement what the community group wanted, period, end, stop, don't do the study. DOT also confirmed that the mighty INRIX data that we have heard also was supposed to reveal all this wonderful information will not show us whether speeds are reduced late at night when the pedestrians have largely been killed. They get averages, they get rush hour. They cannot show you that from the INRIX information. And unfortunately, we live in an era where our politicians are not always straightforward with us. We were told that the pilot project would be reevaluated, you heard it, 30, 60, 90. We were told you would have a chance to be heard, but the DOT meeting, the only chance to be heard, was canceled at the last minute, even though the road diet, other than Vista Del Mar and the one lane on Culver, remains completely unchanged. The road diet started in May. June, July, and half of August have gone by, and now school is coming back in session. What happened to 30, 60, 90? Now we're told that next week, a hand-picked group of people will start meeting, still without your opportunity to make public comment, and that we will need to wait another 90 days on top of the 90 we've already been to hear what they recommend. We don't know who they are. We don't know how they were chosen. We don't know who applied and who wasn't chosen. We don't know if the deck has been stacked by appointing more people who support the initiative than not. For that matter, even though the councilman says the task force will include the original activists who supported the road diet, we still don't even know who those people are, when they met, or how they became appointed to the task. But stay with me on the timeline. The task force gets going 3 months after the road diet was implemented. Then they take 3 months. Then there will be more meetings to discuss their suggestions, taking another month or two. And then the DOT told us in the meeting that the ad hoc and Cindy attended, that it takes them at least another 60 days to draw up the plans, even if they're told to reverse it. Altogether, do the math. At the pace that we have been suffering, it will be nearly a year before there will be any significant change if you allow this process to go forward. The councilman said it was a pilot project, 30, 60, 90, and that's why we have to call for it to be reversed and say, take all the time you want to study everything you want, but we can't suffer and let Ray and other people suffer for a year. Unfortunately, our politicians also tell us one thing and do something else in this era. In the last election, my fellow board members, we passed Measure M, which will raise $120 billion in taxes. And it was sold to the public because the single biggest issue in our daily lives is traffic. We were willing to vote to add to our sales taxes because the money would be used to do what? End congestion. And no, Measure M money hasn't been spent yet. However, the irony is that the first thing that Mike did related to traffic congestion in our community was to create more of it by implementing the road diet and taking the lanes away. How many people here thought that's what you were getting when you voted to increase the sales tax to end congestion? Anybody? And that's not all. The Measure M funds tens of millions of dollars back to the city of LA. But instead of using that to fix congestion, the city council committee that Mike chaired, even though the money hasn't come through yet, has decided to divert 2/3 of that money to building out bike lanes and other things that are part of Vision Zero, rather than addressing issues that would address congestion. This is about families and times. Commuters should not be demonized because they have to get to work. They're trying to support their families and get home with them to be quality time before their kids go to sleep. And we think that it's a false choice to portray this as one or the other. If you actually sit down and read our letter, We said in here, we strongly support better lighting, more crosswalks, pedestrian bridges, speed limit reductions, and traffic enforcement. These and other safety improvements are lesser impactful ways of providing greater safety that should be used first before taking lanes away. Not lanes first and then implement the other things. They put the cart before the horse. And again, what we do know is that on Vista Del Mar, DOT for years offered all of these suggestions and said how to make it safer, and not one time did DOT ever say take lanes away as a way to make it safer. So it's politically driven. If speed is the killer, and I'll grant you, a pedestrian hit at 5 miles an hour is not going to suffer as much damage as a pedestrian hit at 60. Pretty straightforward logic there. But if speed is the killer, then get police enforcement out there to reduce the speed. Let me give you an example. Go to the other side of the airport. How many of you drive through El Segundo? Right? Really low speed limits. How many of you dare speed in El Segundo?
Are you for speed bumps?
You'd be out of your mind to do so. Why? They have traffic enforcement.
Why are you against speed bumps?
I'm going to ask that you be removed, that you can't confine yourself. And the fact of the matter is that if we had traffic enforcement here, we wouldn't need to take lanes away to be able to get the speeds down. We are now tracked here. People didn't like that in the other letter, and I had to laugh because I saw it all over the news groups for the next week of people saying how they really are trapped, metaphorically speaking. And it's not just at rush hour, but it was to improve. If this was to improve our quality of life, it's a failure and takes precious time away from being with family with no identifiable connection to safety.
Lawyer rhetoric.
Louis, would you will you help me, Mr. Roy? Roy, you can go outside, okay? Please? Then behave. I don't want to hear another word from you.
If I was the only one not speaking out of turn, then I would be quiet, but others are doing it too.
Everybody please, Roy needs you to be quiet and let us have this meeting. Thank you. David, please continue.
Look, I see shirts here in the front row saying safer streets for children. I'm not against safer streets for children, but I'm sorry, I don't see the logic. Because what we're talking about here is that kids don't play in the middle of Pershing, Culver, and Jefferson. Kids do play on Reese, Golden, and 85th Street. You've now taken the streets where the traffic was, and you've shoved it onto the streets where the kids are playing. So if you're really concerned about safer streets for children, you wouldn't take the traffic off the arterial highways and push them through our residential communities, which, by the way, DOT confirmed the INRIX data will not show us what the new traffic patterns are in the residential neighborhoods, which Jesse directly told us that it would. And DOT confirmed that's not true. That's something else we learned in the last 2 weeks. Look, I'm not against safety, nor do I think that the deaths Mike cited or, in his appeal for sympathy to support the road die were anything but heartbreaking tragedies. But imposing this on living and working people is not helping, nor is it the solution to these deaths. A single lane wouldn't have saved any of those people. Removing the lanes doesn't stop drunk drivers. Removing the lanes and creating congestion at rush hour is not reducing speeds at midnight. The true fact is these are unconnected events, and taking lanes away or adding a bike lane is not going to make us safer. We can all argue about whether or not some people say, oh, it was safer, some people say it wasn't. But the city already did the studies for us, ironically. They did, as part of the Vision Zero, the high injury network study, which spotlighted the streets with a high concentration of traffic collisions. Go to the data, not the anecdotes. And what it determined was that there were 40 corridors where it was dangerous for pedestrians, traffic accidents, and so on. Not one of the identified corridors is Vista Del Mar, Pershing, Culver, or Jefferson. None of those streets was found to be unsafe by Vision Zero, not one. So why are we doing it here? This isn't Paris or Amsterdam. There is no subway from Playa del Rey to Santa Monica or to downtown. And the fact of the matter is that we don't need to have these measures taken when there are other ways to make it safer. When the owner of the shoe store was killed, tragically, we put in a lighted crosswalk. Now there's citation to the fact that he was killed, but the irony of that is the lighted crosswalk has worked. Nobody's been hurt or killed there since. So instead of taking the lane away, put in more lighted crosswalks. That's the lesson. Not one person here is in favor of dying. And I'm sorry for those of you who try and paint it out as to being something different, but carried to its extreme, and carried to what is going to be the measure by which you're going to determine whether it's a success or a failure, merely looking at whether or not there are fewer cars or if the cars are going slower, I submit is not an acceptable measure of whether we are safer. Because by that measure, when the cars finally come to a complete grinding halt and are not moving at all, we will have absolute safety. We don't need to close lanes or go on a road diet until the other options are tried first, and our letter says that. We're not saying do nothing. We're saying you needed to do the studies up front. We're saying that there's a lot of other things that need to be done, and that all of those things are things that have the time to be considered and implemented properly. We're not saying no to everything. We're saying no to the lane closures and try everything else first. End the madness, return the lanes. The pilot project has had 90 days. We have not seen a safety improvement out there. If anything, it's gotten worse. This isn't vision zero, this is zero vision.